Another week of the Arizona Fall League is in the books. Who showed up and showed out at the Fall Stars game and in game action last week? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster, and thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I want this to be your show. If you have questions for Monday's mailbag, show ideas, segment ideas, anything like that, tons of ways to get them to us. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Everything is in the link tree, in the episode description, in the show notes. We have a Discord, we have a subtext, all of that. Let us know. We want to hear from you. So, Arizona Fall League, another week has wrapped up, and this one was fun for a lot of people because you got to watch some of it rather easily. The Fall Stars game, the All-Star game for the Arizona Fall League, was on Sunday night on MLB Network, 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And it ended up a 6-3 victory for the American League over the National League. There was a couple interesting hitters in there, a couple interesting pitchers in there. And then after that, I do want to talk a little bit about last week's action. It was an abbreviated week because of the game. But Colson Montgomery of the Chicago White Sox was the MVP in the game. Went 2 for 2, hit a home run, one of 4 home runs in the game. But the way he did it was nice. Colson Montgomery gets a single in his first at-bat. Second at-bat, facing Ronan Kopp, lefty from the Dodgers. And it's a theme. A couple Dodgers pitchers gave up a couple home runs in this game. But gets a fastball in the mid-90s that looks like it didn't quite elevate as far as Kopp wanted it, right? Kind of left it in the middle of the plate, about belt high. If you're going to throw a fastball, you need to either elevate it to the top of the zone or you need to bring it down low, and instead he sits at belt high. Montgomery, 409 feet, 105 miles an hour off the bat, out to, I believe it was right center for the home run. And Colson Montgomery is on track, given some of the roster decisions made by Chicago over the weekend. Montgomery, I think, is on track to at least be competing for the starting job at shortstop in spring training. So Tim Anderson did not have his option picked up by the Chicago White Sox. As I understand, Elvis Andrus is also a free agent. Lurie Garcia, I'm not 100% sure if he's still there or not, but as of right now, your middle infield is like Lennon Sosa at second and Romy Gonzalez at short. Neither one of those guys are really going to stop Colson Montgomery from taking the starting shortstop job. Now, we've discussed on this show before, plenty as AFL kicked off, about how Montgomery missed some time this year. He had an oblique strain that became a back issue, missed a lot of time. So this is them trying to make up at bats and get him the rest of, I think, what he needed to get in Double-A. And there is precedent for teams to promote players straight from Double-A to the bigs. It feels like these teams in the Double-A Southern League, especially the Angels, who have the Rocket City Trash Pandas, they do that quite a bit from Double-A straight to the bigs. They skip Triple-A. The Atlanta Braves have taken not as so much pitchers, but position players straight from Double-A to the bigs. I'm thinking about Vaughn Grissom had barely gotten to Double-A when he went to the bigs. Michael Harris went from Double-A to the bigs and skipped Triple-A almost altogether. And then now the Birmingham Barons, the Chicago White Sox, look like they're going to be doing that as well. So very interesting. Curious to watch what happens there. Oh, the Tampa Bay Rays, Junior Caminero from Double-A straight to the bigs. From the Montgomery Biscuits straight to the bigs. So multiple examples of teams taking players from the Double-A Southern League and sending them straight to the majors. And I think Colson Montgomery has a good chance at being the next one that they do that for. And I'm not just saying that because I have Colson Montgomery in Dynasty and don't really have any other shortstops that I like or trust. I'm saying that because I legitimately think it's going to happen. I think he's going to have a chance to win the job out of spring training. You're probably going to see some growing pains, a learning curve, and things like that. But how well Colson Montgomery's played in the Arizona Fall League makes me feel like that is more likely than not to happen next spring. Kyle Manzardo also had a very good game. Another player who we expect to absolutely get a chance to start at the major league level to open 2024. He's probably the best pure hitter that's there. And we've talked about he's been more of a hit guy over a power guy, but he gets a home run off of, I think it was Kendall Williams, another Dodgers pitcher. This one was a righty, but over 110 miles an hour, just another fastball that kind of hung over the middle of the plate, and he absolutely ripped it. And when you look at Kyle Manzardo and the fit for him, I feel like, one, he probably would have been up last year if it wasn't for the injury. He had a shoulder injury, missed some time, and his year statistically didn't go well. But as we've mentioned on the show before, there's a lot of off-the-field concerns that came up for him last year. We're not worried about that. He's looked to be more himself coming back from the shoulder and all of that. So I think as of now, you can pencil Kyle Manzardo in at first base, with Josh Naylor perhaps doing a bit more DH in Cleveland under new manager Stephen Vogt. Now, obviously, we don't know how Stephen's exactly going to deploy the lineup. He was hired literally an hour before we're recording this show, but it stands to reason that I'm sure he understands one of the things that they have to do is find more power in that lineup. And so promoting Kyle Manzardo, who is the offensive approach that they look for, the pure hitters who don't strike out a ton, but has plenty of raw power. And when he can elevate balls a little better than just hitting line drives, he can hit for plenty of power. Feels like he'll take the first base job. Josh Naylor at DH. If there's an injury or something, obviously you can move guys around. And then your outfield as of now looks like it's a combination of Steven Kwan, who won a Gold Glove this weekend, Miles Straw, and Ramon Laureano in right field. You've got a couple more years, I think 2 more years of team control for him. And I think that's a position where you can already go ahead and pencil in Chase DeLauter whenever he's ready. Pencil in Chase DeLauter to take that right field spot in Cleveland and give them another source of power. Laureano's had power in the past, didn't really have a ton last year. That's why he went on waivers from the A's in August. I think he finished with under 10 home runs last year. But you absolutely have the ability to get some home runs in the future when you add Manzardo to start 24, and then you add DeLauter, hopefully by the end of 24, maybe the start of 25. Another guy, somebody we've not really talked about on the show, but who impressed me in the game, was Eric Brown Jr. of the Milwaukee Brewers. Made some really good plays at short. Offensively, I want to say he might have been the only guy that had multiple hits. He had a home run in the 5th. He had I think he had a base hit early in his first at-bat, and then had some good plays in the field. And that's significant for Eric Brown because, one, he's not had a ton of power in the minor leagues historically, and there's going to be an opening at shortstop in Milwaukee in the near future. So, recap on Eric Brown. 2022 first rounder out of Coastal Carolina. So, he's already 22 years old. He'll turn 23 in December. And didn't necessarily hit for a ton of power. I'm going to say at Coastal, I think he had 7 home runs in his final year, and didn't really hit for a ton of power in the minors after getting drafted. This year, almost the entire season in high A, had an injury, missed some time, got a brief glimpse in double A Biloxi at the very end of the season as they tried to make the postseason. But in his 63 games for Eric Brown, again, high A Wisconsin here, 265, 362, 347, only 4 home runs, 12 extra base hits total. Now, 32 walks, 48 strikeouts. You like the strikeout and walk ratios there, nothing too extreme. And 37 of 42 on stolen bases. But the big thing here is the question was, could he stick it short? Was the defense going to be good enough? And if it wasn't, was he going to be able to hit for enough power to kick out to a third base, or would he have to move into second? Because you've got other options for second base and really for third base too. In Milwaukee, we talked about Brock Wilken being a fantastic option at third base, Bryce Terang at second. Like, shortstop's the one where he needs to stick, because if he doesn't stick there, it's not really clear where Eric Brown's going to get to play, because Willy Adames is one more year of team control and he's a free agent in 2025. So some of this for Eric Brown is we need to catch him up because he missed time this year, and I don't think we ever found out what that injury was. He went on the IL. I don't think we ever got word of what that was. I may be confusing him with Shane Sasaki, who's in the third segment, who we did not find out what his injury was. But either way, I think part of it is we need to catch him up on the at-bats he missed, but part of it too is we need to push that development a little bit faster, because we're going to need him at the major league level, because Willy Adames has one more year, and depending on how the Brewers season goes, he might get traded at the deadline. Who knows what's going to happen there? They're going to have a new GM. They're going to have a new manager. We'll find a lot of things are up in the air, but they may see some drastic changes at the deadline because they have guys like a Corbin Burns who are on the final years of their deal and may or may not stick around. In just a minute, a couple of interesting pitchers in this game as well. I want to make sure we talk about them. We'll do that next right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Your team's not necessarily guaranteed to win. I thought Atlanta was going to do okay against the Vikings, given that they had a quarterback that was brand new, and then he got knocked out of the game, and they had to bring in Josh Dobbs, who literally did not practice or didn't even know everybody's names in the huddle. And yet, he somehow won that game. But if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app's incredibly easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options: spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Okay, so talking about some of the pitchers in the Arizona Fall League Fall Stars game, opening the game was a guy that we've not really talked about a lot on this show, CJ Van Eyck of the Blue Jays. A guy that lost 2022 because of Tommy John surgery. He was drafted in 2017 by the Mets. He chose to go to college instead, turned around, got drafted by the Blue Jays in 2020. And after the 21 season, boom, Tommy John came up. He made it back for just a little bit of time during the season, like 20-something innings, not really enough to even get a lot out of. When he went down, it was like the curveball was a curveball, and a four-seam fastball was really what he did. Had a decent changeup as well. And then the slider was there. And the question was, what's it going to look like after Tommy John? In the game, he gives up a leadoff double, right? It's Victor Scott. You give up a single to anybody else, it's a double for Victor Scott. And then after that, 3 straight strikeouts. Looked like he's swapped from a four-seam fastball to a sinker. And he had a strikeout on a curveball, he had a strikeout on the sinker, strikeout on the changeup. All of them were swinging. They were all competitive pitches, and they were all they fooled these hitters. So feel really good about that. I was really impressed with what he was able to do. The question now is going to be, how does his stuff hold up over a longer start and then over a full season? Because obviously it's a little different in a one-inning sample. We've seen guys absolutely let it eat in a one-inning sample. I'm thinking about back to the Futures game when we saw Jacob Mizorowski just pumping gas and hitting velocities that he didn't really hit as a starter all season because he knew he was throwing for one inning. So curious to see what happens with CJ Van Eyck, but was really impressed with that one inning that he had. Speaking of a guy that had one inning, and probably the most notable pitching prospect that was in the Fall Stars game, because Ricky Tiedemann was invited but did not compete, was Tekoa Roby of the Cardinals. Was originally a Rangers prospect, went over to the Cardinals in the Jordan Montgomery trade. Pitched the first inning, 8 strikes and 9 pitches. struck out Chase DeLauder on a breaking ball, struck out Kyle Manzardo on a fastball. And the big thing for Tekoa Roby is the Cardinals need more swing and miss from that rotation. That's been the big thing they've talked about, and they were a little bit honest with the fact that they've always built that pitching staff around sinker slider guys who pitch to contact, hit the ball into the teeth of a formidable defense, and they get outs. When a couple things combined to make it where that wasn't an effective strategy for the Cardinals. You had shift restrictions, which obviously made it harder to make up for deficiencies on defense. And then you had personnel changes that also weakened the defense. Nolan Gorman at second base is not a very good defensive setup for anybody, right? He's lacking a little bit in range. When you can't shift him, it's even worse. You can't do a complete shift. You can still do partial shifts, but you can't do a complete shift. It ends up looking even worse. So one of the things that they prioritize is getting swing and miss. And Tekoa Roby came over, struggled this year from a statistical standpoint when he was with AA Frisco. 5.05 ERA in 10 starts, 46 innings, 50 strikeouts. The big thing there, though, was, so 9.7 strikeouts per 9, but only walked 2 and change. It was like, I think it was 12 walks in 46 innings. So was that 2.3 per 9 or something? Not a ton of walks. And when he came over to the Cardinals system, AA Springfield, same thing, took the ball for four games, 12 innings, gave up 4 runs on 6 hits, 3 walks, 19 strikeouts. Obviously, 14.9 strikeouts per 9 is not necessarily going to stick, but the point is he showed the swing and miss stuff, which is what the Cardinals need from their pitchers going forward. So I liked what he did in the game. I liked the future potential of a guy like Tekoa Roby. You've got a couple of pitchers, Mason. So you've got some swing and miss guys coming. You've got Michael McGreevy, you've got Tink Hintz, Roby, Max Rajic, your, 6th rounder in 2022 out of UCLA. Thought his stuff was really good. Cooper Yerpe, your 1st rounder in 2022. You've got swing and miss stuff in the system. You just have to develop it and get it to the bigs. Curious to see what happens there and how that develops. And then the pitching as a whole was really good in the game. I think it was something the two teams combined for 13 hits and 20-something strikeouts. There was 4 home runs, but 20-something strikeouts. Juan Meja of the Rockies looked really good. 7th inning, 3 no hits, no runs, gets all 3 outs on 10 pitches. He got Kalai Rosario, who won the home run derby on Saturday, and Kyle Manzardo struck both of them out, both on sliders. Really good looking slider, low to mid 80s. Combine that with a really good fastball that he elevated well. Something where it's only an inning, yes, but good to see good pitching from Colorado Rockies prospects because it feels like that's what that team has struggled with for the longest time. We had the stats the other day about how bad the Rockies were on offense, but also from a pitching perspective and just how rough that they've been for a while now. So would be good to see them get some good pitching. In just a minute, I do want to talk about some of what happened in the games last week. There's an interesting player for the Tampa Bay Rays that may be a trade acquisition this offseason. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked on MLB Prospects. Welcome back into Locked on MLB Prospects, 3rd segment here on your Tuesday show. Talked about the Arizona Fall League last week, talked about the Fall Stars game and some of the stars from there. But looking at what actually happened in the league, not counting the Fall Stars game last week. And Shane Sasaki of the Tampa Bay Rays had a really good week last week, and in an interesting scenario of he looks to be a quality player and can be a quality player, but not necessarily, I don't know if he's going to work out with the Rays with how crowded their position players are. So last week in the Arizona Fall League, 5 of 11, 2 triples, scores 2 runs, 3 RBIs, 1 walk to 4 strikeouts, and steals 3 bases. And so drafted in 2019's 3rd round, and he has missed time, it feels, every single season since he was drafted. Obviously, no season in 2020. He goes home to Perth, plays a little bit in the Australian Baseball League. But 2021 gets 33 games in rookie ball, and that's it. Doesn't necessarily hit for a ton of power. This is his age 20 year, mind you, in rookie ball. 290, 382, 403. 2022 goes to single A Charleston. 89 games. Spends most of the season there. Misses a little bit of time, but spends most of the season there. 324, 410, 497. Only 9 home runs, but 39 extra base hits. So it's not home run power, but the extra base power, the doubles power, ends up coming in. Not a completely amazing year. 49 walks to 92 strikeouts in 89 games. And then 47 of 51 on stolen bases. So you can see the speed is there. The doubles power is there. They're still swing and miss in the game. Goes to high A Bowling Green this year. And because he's missed some time because of the pandemic and because of stuff in 21, he's 22 years old in high A. So he is the average age for the level, but from a competitive standpoint, most rated prospects in high A, he is older than most of them. 64 games in Bowling Green, 301, 375, 465, 7 home runs, 25 extra base hits in 64 games, 30 walks to 65 strikeouts, 12 of 16 on stolen bases. Again, strikes out about once a game. The steals look to be there. The power is fine. It's not necessarily amazing. He misses time in the middle of the year. I don't know what it was. I haven't seen where it's been published what it was. Everything all says undisclosed injury. But he looks just about the same both before and after. Good to see. And the thing with Shane Sasaki is it's something where the pitch recognition got better. The swing decisions got better. He's a decent defender. I'd give him probably above average to plus in center. The speed is really good. It's probably 70 grade speed. The issue, I guess there's 2 issues technically. One is his power. There's a question about the power ceiling. I don't know if he's ever going to get to average or not. And then 2 is his arm is I'd probably fringe to average. And so the issue you have is he is good enough to be a center fielder for a lot of teams. I mean, I would relate him as far as defensive skill and an arm strength to Alec Thomas of the Diamondbacks. So, he can be a center fielder, but the Rays have higher standards for their center fielders than most teams do. And so he's going to be a center fielder for a lot of teams. He's not going to be a center fielder as currently constructed for Tampa Bay. And so because of that, I think there's ability to go out, trade for Shane Sasaki as a throw-in on a deal. There's a lot of rumors they're going to be moving Tyler Glasnow because he's owed $25 million. Or if Glasnow's not moved, you're going to have other guys that get moved to make up some of that money. Brandon Lowe, maybe a Randy Arozarena or somebody else. There's going to be players moved from Tampa Bay because the payroll is way too high compared to where it normally would be. Shane Sasaki is a sneaky grab by a team who's making a deal with Tampa Bay and wants to get a little bit extra out of it because the valuations on him, again, are going to be better for another team than they're going to be for Tampa Bay because he's not good enough defensively to play center in Tampa, but he's good enough defensively to play center in a lot of other places. Another guy who had a good week, not only because he won the home run derby on Saturday, but just in general, Kalai Rosario of the Twins. Still did that weird thing he does where he's not hitting a lot of stuff that's not home runs. He went 5 for 14 this week. Hit a home run, 2 doubles. He scored 2 runs, 5 RBIs, 3 walks to 4 strikeouts, and stole a base. He has 7 home runs on the year. He is tied with Aaron Sabato, who's a corner outfielder in the Twins system, tied with Aaron Sabato for the lead in home runs in the Arizona Fall League. And then again, like I said, they went to an extra round on Saturday for him to win the home run derby. The big thing here for Kalai Rosario, and we talked about this last week when we talked about him, is the strikeouts. He still, again this time, he struck out about once a game, and he's been doing that, and the strikeouts are a little bit higher than you would necessarily love. And so little bit of concern there. Kevin Alcantara of the Cubs had a very good week, 5 of 14. 4 of those 5 hits were extra bases, 2 doubles, a triple, and a home run. He scored a run. He had 7 RBIs, but no walks to 5 strikeouts. So he's got 5 home runs in the fall league. He's 2 off the lead, but it's something where he's very much a boom or bust kind of guy. And that's obviously something you have to worry about. It's a little bit like it shows he's a little bit of a riskier prospect than some of these other top outfielders because he's got so much swing and miss in the game. Again, when he connects, he does tons of damage. The issue is he has to get quality contact, and he doesn't always do that. But Chicago having a pretty decent outfield. You've got Pete Crow Armstrong. You've got Seiya Suzuki. You've got Gold Glove winner Ian Happ in left. It feels like you have the runway to work and accept a little bit more risk from some of your corner outfield types, like an Alcantara, like an Owen Casey, like an Alexander Canario, technically like a Brennan Davis, even though I don't necessarily know if he still should count for this or not. But because you've got outfielders that'll work at the major league level, and you have, it's a pretty decent outfield already, you can take a little bit more risk to try to find impact players versus just having to find a guy with a pretty high floor. You can find the guy with the higher ceiling. We'll spend a little bit more time in the minors trying to develop to see if they're able to do it or not and if they can get there. And then one thing I want to point out is on Friday, there was a game. It was Mesa versus Peoria. And Mesa wins 8-7, but they stole 9 bases. Ridiculous, right? Caleb Durbin of the Yankees, I think, stole 3. Max Muncy of the A's stole 3. James Triantos had 2. Kennedy Corona, I think, had 1. Medina had 1. It was 9 stolen bases. And there's been a lot of, not a lot, but there's been some chatter online about, holy cow, Dominic Keegan just got absolutely owned in that game. I went back and watched that game. It's only a high home camera, but it really felt like most of those 9 bags were taken off of the pitcher, not off of Dominic Keegan. There was just about nothing he could have done to stop, I'd say, 7 of those stolen bases. And frustrating because these teams, we know that Mesa can steal. Going into that game, I want to say that they were 88% on stolen bases. They'd stolen 50-something bags going into that game. So we knew that they could steal plenty of bases. And yet the pitchers for Peoria just did not do enough to try to control the running game. Now, sometimes in minor league games, you'll see stuff like that where the outcome of the game isn't as important as the development stuff. They're not having him worry about the guy on first or try to incorporate slide steps and stuff because they want him to focus on delivering his pitches. Sometimes in minor league competition, you don't always see that in the Arizona Fall League, but still frustrating to see that many steals and to see people blaming just by default, which I understand, but by default blaming Dominic Keegan for it. When you go back and you watch the game, most of those, he didn't have a chance to catch them because the breaks were so good, the leads were so big because they stole them off the pitcher. Fantastic week this week. A lot of fun stuff coming up. We're talking about another draft class. We're doing a positional top 5, talking about next year's draft. Hopefully there's some fun transactions this week we can talk about as well as far as free agent signings and trades and things like that. In the meantime, if you got questions for the show, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. All of the ways to reach us, Discord, subtext, email, all of that, it's in the episode description. It's in the show notes inside of that link tree there. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.